Hello, my name is Teresa Keo, and welcome to episode 6. Today is July 13th, 2026, and yes, I'm behind the intention with filming, but that's okay. I think that if I can get to the end of the year with 12 episodes released, talking about what gets accomplished in the month, that'll be a good place for me. So today we're going to talk about what was worked on during June. I do have finished objects and new projects from July, but I'm gonna save those for a later date. So to start with, what I'm wearing today is the Karina tee by Sari Nordland. I worked on this between March and April 2024. There really is a decent amount to say about this piece. Let's start with the yarn. Now, this was a yarn that this is a silk yarn, and I thought that it was made in an ethical way by my own standards, but it was not. So I definitely feel guilty about owning it, but I think it'd be worse to not wear it and to not use the other quantity of this silk that I have. That just feels wasteful and unethical. So we're gonna wear it. We're gonna use it. But I don't think that this is a really summer appropriate piece. It's great in winter, and it's great in winter, it's great in spring, and it's great in fall. This was made holding two strands of fingering weight yarn together. It's also a cable piece, so I think both of those factors may be why I'm not finding it to be a summer piece. You often hear that silk is good for summer, but so far I'm not finding that to be the case for me. With the other quantity I have, I'm considering making a piece of just a single layer of fabric, no cables, and holding yarn independently, so we'll see whether that works. Also, talking about the yarn, I did find that it grew a decent amount during blocking. I made the small size, which was not recommended, and I haven't checked my gauge. But when I first put it on, it was pretty close fitting, and after blocking it fits a lot more relaxed, so I'm happy with the fit on the final outcome. There are some things about it that I would do differently. You can see on the sleeves that there is an angle from where I sewed down the fold over. Definitely more so on the side. I definitely could go back and sew it down. I might in the future, but it's definitely not a priority. Another thing about this piece is I tried quite determinedly to figure out a 2x2 tubular bind off, and I got pretty close. I'll insert a close-up of what it looks like. I do think I got fairly close to achieving the goal, but it's definitely slanted and off-center, so there's definitely a starting point there. One of these days I'm gonna figure it out. Personal goal. Might take a decade. We'll see. This is definitely a work-appropriate top for me. If I had made it longer, it would be better. But the neckline is high enough for work. Sari Nordland's necklines do raise questions for me. They're often in her pictures pretty close up around the neck, and personally I like a little bit more room here, just a little bit less of that choked sort of feeling. This one isn't choking by any means, but if I'm gonna wear a t-shirt, I'd like a little bit more breathability. Yeah, I don't have much else to say about this other than this was my first cabled project without a cable needle, and I'm delighted to have learned that technique. It has paid off. There are a fair amount of cable projects that I've worked on or I am working on, and they go by a lot quicker without the cable needle, and I'm not constantly losing said cable needle. So we're gonna let this piece be and move on to the whips because they are exhaustive. Okay, my first category of whips to talk about, we're going to categorize as on the needles. Now, my cables have been breaking over time, and I don't want to buy new ones, so I am going to have to finish some projects before I can cast on anything new. Now there are 3 plus projects in this category. The plus is a pair of socks that I started in July, and those are on my Chiagu sock needles, and so they don't fall into the problematic cable category. But we're saving that project for July. Now, the first project to revisit is my Finch sweater, Bottom Up by Marie Wallin. This is where we are currently at. Gorgeous piece, bucket list knit. Haven't touched it in June. Sorry. But it is one of the ones that are on the needle, so it has to be coming back soon. Okay, the second project in our category is the Diamond Aran cardigan by Hello Hugo Life. And I have decided that I'm going to keep working on it. There was a question on whether I was going to frog it, but I don't intend to. And this was begun in January, but again, I haven't worked on it in June. So far, we have the beginnings of the back panel. What happened, I decided that, or I realized that the back panel was not as long as it would need to be for this cardigan to work. So I had picked up the front left piece, this one here, and knit it to the measurements indicated in the pattern, and it's supposed to line up with the back at a certain point of fold, and it quite clearly does not. Oh, this is the end of the back panel, so we're gonna need to add to that, but that's okay. Yeah, like I said, this is another one that was not worked on in June, so I don't have much progress. I don't have any progress on it, but I am pretty excited to pick this back up. This might be one of the first pieces I go back to. My next project is probably going to be addressed first. Probably not finished first, but definitely addressed first because of how small it is. So let's move into that. All right, our next on the needles project is my lace weight hat. This is self-drafted, knit up in Malabrigo Baby Lace in the shade Periwinkle. This is a self-drafted hat. I am thinking that this will be the next piece in my Mitchell line, along with the Mitchell scarf, which just needs to be typed and fine-tuned, tested in that whole process. But yeah, oh no. I'm gonna need to buy another of these needles because my broken cables plight has continued. Fortunately, I bought this from a yarn shop nearby, so that'll get remedied soon. But anyways, this will probably be the piece that I work on most next because we are traveling soon. We'll be going to Nice and Aix-en-Provence. And this is a grand little travel project. Like, this is the whole thing. So I'll likely be working on this. The way I made it, there are 8 points of increase and a pretty little special cast on technique that I'm quite proud of. But yeah, this is what the crown looks like. It'll probably take a while because it's lace weight. I'm working it top down. I currently like that for hats, but it's also the first hat I've knit. So I'm gonna put this down because now stitch markers are falling out, and yeah, we're gonna work on that while we're away. Perfect Little Travel Project. I just need to replace that needle. Yeah. So that concludes my on the needles category. Okay. The next project I want to talk about is another one that's self-drafted, and it is a TikTok. And as I was talking about with the Sorry Nordland piece, During the summer, I like more of an open neckline for heat reasons. And I also like for easy to wear pieces to not have a specific front and a back. So that is what I did on this tank. It is identical in the front and back. So you can just throw it on and not have to think about it, which I love. And I get short row shaping like for a neckline, but it can be annoying to try and figure out which side of a piece is the front. Obviously, we'll deal with it. It's not a big deal. But it is something I didn't want to deal with this tank top. I am working it up in 3 colors of coastal cotton. Now my hat and my scarf, I fully intend to release as a pattern. However, this tank top would need to be significantly graded if I were to release it, and I don't know how to do that. So if you have great recommendations for learning how to pattern grade garments, please drop a comment below. I am quite interested. And that's what I have to say for the tank top. It's coming along, but I don't have the cable for it. My next category is going to be, let's call it sleeves. First piece in sleeves category is going to be the one with the most significant changes, and that is our Thea tank. And now this one has a nice neckline. It's neither too low cut, but it is more breathable. I would like a bit of a difference in the back, but that's okay. I have finished everything except for this right armhole, which is frustrating. This was the piece I was working on when the cable broke. So I just had that one armhole finishing to go, and this Thea top will be done. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to have it done in time for France, which is sad, but also okay. Now, I did say that this has the most changes because the last time I spoke about it, I was intending to knit the front and back panels separately, then seam them together up the sides to avoid differences in tension between the part where it's flat and the part where it's in the round. But I forgot to cast on underarm stitches. So on the whole, I think it was 12 stitches smaller than it was supposed to be, and on an Aran weight yarn, that is pretty significant. So I ripped back, cast on the underarm sleeves, and worked it in the round because at that point I could not be bothered to knit them separately and seam. I don't think there's too great of a difference tension-wise. I did have to work that consciously, but it did come through in the end. Overall, this is a really great piece that I am very much considering making again, and it is made out of a cotton yarn. We are knitters the cotton, just like my Soho top, which we'll talk about next. I would love to make this in a variety of different colors. I think that'd be really fun. I did do a 1x1 tubular bind off on the neckline, the first armhole, and the hem. And this felt relatively risky because cotton doesn't have memory. So I found that working it as tightly as I can, even though it's bad for the joints, does provide a result that I'm happy with. When I did this first armhole, it looked like it was going to be too small. But all I did was stretch this out as much as I could, and since I knit it so tightly, it came to a nice finished tension. And I don't have to worry about it shrinking back up, other than in the wash. So I'm not sure how the drying situation is going to go, but that's irrelevant right now. So that's something I'm going to keep in mind in the future. When I'm working a cotton tubular bind off, I'm going to knit it as tightly as I can and then just stretch it to its finished dimension. It's going to stretch anyways. I might as well see what that looks like, and so if I have to fix it, I can go back and do it then. I'm looking forward to having this sleeve done. Once I finish the on the needle pieces, or at least get one of my cables back, this will be the first thing I do. The second piece I'm planning to go back into next is the Soho top by Kadri. Now this is technically finished, but the pickup ratio on the armhole was still not to my liking. So I'm going to work these a third time and hopefully that'll be the one that is correct. It's just an I-cord etching, so it should be easy enough to finish. I'm happy with the length on this. It is the second time I've made the Soho top. I know I like this pattern, and yeah, this is in the same weir knit as the cotton yarn. I kind of accidentally ordered 10 balls of Bitlets. So we're finally gonna use it. I think the quantity I have is enough for one more piece. I am considering working some other colors of the same yarn in as a stripe, but we'll see. I'm not going to make that decision now because I have so many things to finish before we do that cast on. We'll see if I stick to that. Okay. The final piece for our sleeves category is the Neville's Dinner Party Vest by Fresh Isle Fibers, and I definitely need to sew down the interior steeks. I still haven't decided whether I'm going to sew them down with just a needle and thread, whether I'm going to cover them with a ribbon. I'm not sure. We'll see. I am questioning whether I will redo just the bind off on these armholes. The knitting itself is not too tight. We'll see how I feel about the bind off, particularly after sewing down that steek and doing a final block to see how it really lies and whether that would make a significant impact for me. But yeah. Okay, our final piece for June is the Kutar sock by Sari Nordland. And with this being in black, me holding it up here, you can't see any of the intricacies of it. So I'll insert a picture here of what it looks like on. It is a lacy sock, worked cuff down, heel flap, heel turn, gusset. My own personal toe box decreases, I think. Yep. And so this is my left sock. And there are some things to say about this. Now, Sari Nordland sock pattern sizing are not... They don't have too many options, but I think it's understandable why, with her lace charts being as wide, like having a large number of stitches in the repeat, like, yeah, there's going to be limited sizes unless you add panels or different versions of the chart, and really that'd be a lot to do. So it's understandable why her sizing is how it is. It just doesn't work for my feet exactly. I usually do a 72 stitch on vanilla socks, but I'm thinking I could definitely get away with a 68, maybe a 64. I'm not sure. This is a 64 stitch pattern, and I am not going to change up the needles that I like to use on socks. I like to use a 2mm metal needle, and I'm not going to change that, even though it's a 64 stitch sock. But with it being lace, I figured that the body of the sock would be big enough to, would be stretchy enough to get on over my foot. The question was the cuff. So what I did a 72 stitch cast on, and then on the first round of the lace chart, just decreased down to either 60 or 64, whatever it is. And it looks a little funny when it's not on, but when I'm wearing it, it looks like a normal sock. So that is an exciting discovery for me, to know that I can knit more of her sock patterns, because they really are pretty, just not offered in various sizes. So yeah, this is definitely a back burner project. I've kind of gone a little sock heavy in July, so we'll talk about that soon. But that is the last thing I had to say about knitting in June. I might do a little bit of sewing before the France trip. Some linen sleeveless tops I think would be a nice addition to whatever I bring on the trip. So we'll see. That is something I'm considering. And other than that, June was my birthday month, and huge shout out to the husband because he is so thoughtful with his gifts. I am speaking directly to you. I think you know who you are. Thank you so much. Um, yeah, I was delighted when I found out what he did, so thank you. That concludes everything for episode 6 for June 2026. I hope to see you in the next one. Please like, subscribe, comment, all the things, hype, woo, and have a great day. I'll see you next time.